and he's going to present results of a phase 3 clinical trial evaluating a new agent.
Okay. Well, thank you, Peter. Good morning, everyone. Happy to share with you today the results of a randomized placebo-controlled trial evaluating the addition of ramucirumab to first-line docetaxel in metastatic breast cancer. The trial is called ROSE, or Trio 12, and 25 countries were involved with multiple co-authors here. The background is this is an anti-angiogenic trial. There's preclinical rationale that this is an important process by which breast tumors are able to metastasize, and it is related to poor prognosis. In addition, we had preclinical data that this agent was synergistic with docetaxel, and the preclinical models as well suggested that this was a very interesting combination. We performed this trial and designed it in 2007 and 2008, and at the time, and it still remains the case today, anti-angiogenic therapies in breast cancer have not demonstrated improvements in overall survival. Now, ramucirumab is a novel agent. It is an antibody, but unlike bevacizumab, it actually targets the receptor. So the key receptor here is the vascular endothelial growth factor receptor number 2, and it binds to the extracellular domain of that protein, and it shuts down the signaling that would lead to endothelial cell proliferation. We designed this study to address two questions, and one is progression-free survival advantage and the possibility of changes in overall survival. So to do so, it was a large trial. 1,144 patients. We randomized them on a 2-to-1 ratio. The background chemotherapy is docetaxel, so a standard first-line chemotherapy drug at a standard dosing, 75 milligrams per meter squared intravenously every 3 weeks, and it was combined either with placebo or with the new agent ramucirumab. Patients were stratified according to taxanes, presence of visceral metastases, hormone receptor status, and geographic region. This is the primary endpoint, which was investigator-assessed progression-free survival. And the trial did not meet the statistical significance threshold. Although the median progression-free survival numerically was improved from 8.2 months to 9.5 months, and the hazard ratio was 0.88. This was not statistically significant. It was 0.077 for the p-value. So this is a negative trial for the primary endpoint. Overall survival similarly did not suggest that there was an advantage to the new treatment. The hazard ratio here is 1.01, and there's no sense that there's a survival advantage or disadvantage at this time. Now, this is the interim overall survival analysis triggered by the primary endpoint, but we have a full overall survival, final overall survival analysis planned sometime probably in a year. So the next question is, were there subgroups of patients that did benefit from the experimental versus the control arm? And there was no clinically defined subgroup that showed a benefit. So we concluded that ramucirumab plus docetaxel did not significantly prolong the primary endpoint of investigator-assessed progression-free survival over the placebo plus docetaxel standard arm. There was a sensitivity analysis. It's not a secondary endpoint, but a sensitivity analysis where an independent radiology review committee assessed the PFS, and there they found a hazard ratio of 0.79. But this is a sensitivity analysis. This does not convert a negative trial into a positive trial. So there's no difference observed in the interim overall survival analysis for the data to follow. Overall response rates, I didn't show you this data, but I guess you can take it on faith. Overall response rates, disease control rates, and time to progression were higher on the ramucirumab arm. Efficacy results did not differ across clinical subgroups, and there were more side effects, as expected with the combination. And these side effects were sort of the on-target side effects you would expect with an anti-angiogenic therapy: fatigue, hypertension, bleeding, which was mostly nosebleeds or epistaxis, an increase in febrile neutropenia, and stomatitis. So given the the 8 minutes that was allocated to me. I've truncated the presentation. There's further details to be presented later, but I'm happy to address any questions you might have.
Neil, first question.
Hi, Neil Osterwild with Medscape Medical News. Maybe a question for you, Dr. Mackey, but also Dr. Ravdin, Dr. Rubo, whomever wishes to comment. What does it say now about the strategy of anti-angiogenesis in breast cancer? Should we just abandon that line of inquiry, with the failures of bevacizumab and other agents?
Well, at the time this trial was designed, there were reasons to think that an anti-angiogenic strategy in breast cancer was going to actually help our patients. So there was a lot of hope and interest there. We conducted the study with particular attention to the safety of our patients. We had 2 futility analyses, both of which were passed successfully in this trial. And we actually had the IDMC pay very close attention to adverse events that arose. I'm sorry, is it only dogs that can hear this noise? Or is this me?
No, I hear it too.
Oh, okay, excellent.
And I have bad hearing.
So at the end of the day, we have a negative trial here, and we're hopeful that we can go back to the tissue that we have on the trial and find biomarkers, because there is a signal here. We are seeing, improvements in several endpoints, but some patients clearly are benefiting, but we do not understand the biology sufficiently well to pick those out of the general population.
Mm-hmm. But given the problem with the toxicities, hypertension being a common problem, is it worth pursuing this line?
I believe it's still worth pursuing because, albeit the entire population did not benefit, I still think there potentially is a role for angiogenesis were we to find a predictive biomarker.
Dr. Ravdin, you were nodding your head.
That's exactly the statement I would end with, and that is that we're now recognizing that breast cancer is a really diverse disease, and that therefore there are hints of certain markers that may actually predict particular benefit for angiogenic strategies. And they haven't been included in the analysis as presented yet. And so drugs that may, in general, have little value in breast cancer on average in selected populations may be very effective. And so we're still, it's still a work in progress.
Bruce Jansen, Oncology Report. Is ramucirumab under study for other conditions?
So ramucirumab is an agent. There's quite a broad phase 3 trial suite that's ongoing. I am aware of 2 positive phase 3 studies in gastric cancer. One is called REGARD, and the other is the RAINBOW trial, and they have both demonstrated overall survival advantages. So I think one can say that at least in another disease setting, this agent has activity, and this would be good news for gastric cancer patients. I understand there's a lung and a colon cancer trial ongoing as well that are phase 3 and fully powered to show benefit or not.
All right, then it looks like we're ready for the next speaker, Dr. Ravdin.